Hello, YouTube. I'm Shawn Books. Welcome back to my channel and another episode of Zooming In, an occasional series where I engage with bookish social media luminaries the world over, talk about bookish topics, bouncing off some kind of article online. And I'd like to welcome back for his 370 appearance on my channel, and probably most of those were for this series, Bernie of Bernie Lombardi fame, joining us from New York State. Hello, Bernie.
Hey, Shawn. Thanks for having me again.
It's been too long, so.
I know, it has been. I was
going into withdrawal. We've got a banger of an article. This is where I can't get out of my vocabulary this week. Bear with me. That is on Substack, which I think is going to increasingly become a source for these kind of articles. And it is an essay called On Reading versus Living. And the author has a name that I'm going to struggle to pronounce. Couldn't find any help online, but her first name is Ochiko. And then I believe the surname would be pronounced Pavlovbo. And this is a guest essay on another Substacker, the right word, Substackers account, Pandora Sykes. Link in the show notes. Just came out a couple weeks ago. So on reading versus living. Bernie, I think I know which side of that equation you fall on, but why don't you get us started with a general reaction to the essay?
Shawn, I really liked this article. We've done a bunch of these, and typically I always have a little, I don't know if I I'll like it, but then I won't like a couple things, or I might not agree. But actually, I really liked this one. I think because of how personal the author made this exploration, I think that it was just a really great read. I like how she circled back at the end, and we'll get to that. And it's like, you almost like follow her journey throughout. I really liked it. She starts with this premise of how she wanted to read less and like why, what reading so much revealed to her about herself, and, you know, how that got her thinking. And something that I wanted to do, one of my goals for 2025 is to read less. I think my reasoning is different from hers, but I really appreciated hearing what she had to say.
Absolutely. I loved it too. And I think because it was so personal, there was nothing that I felt that she was judging anybody who had a different take on this or a different lifestyle or that was reading more than she does now. So that I really appreciated. And yeah, she felt that reading was taking over her life and that she was ignoring other parts of her life that didn't involve the book. And so she decided, I think it was for the year 2024, that she wasn't going to read as much and get outside, do some things and meet some people. And still she read a pretty impressive amount of books doing all that. Yeah, I thought it was great. So are you reading less now, Bernie? I follow you quite avidly. Rarely miss a post on Bookstagram. It doesn't seem like you're reading less.
I am. In January, I only read 7 books. And for some, that's a lot. But last year, there wasn't a month that I read less than 10. So yeah, I feel like I'm doing a good job. So whereas the author of this article felt like she's read a lot, she enjoys reading, obviously, and loves reading and love the worlds that she's able to escape into. But she did feel like it started to become almost like an escape. She moved to a different country and didn't know many people. And so reading enabled her to not step out and put the effort into becoming a part of this new community. And I felt for me, I want to read less because, and I think it has to do with being a bookstagrammer, and you've probably experienced this on BookTube, is that you want to read everything. Like, you're a part of the conversations, you're talking to people, you're constantly seeing people reading books and talking about books, and you want to know too. You want to be able to talk about these books with everybody. It's almost sometimes a little bit competitive. I hate to admit that, but yes, it does. It does become competitive sometimes. And I found last year I read the most books that I've ever read in a year. And while I love a lot of the books I read, there were also a bunch of books that I couldn't tell you anything about because if I didn't care about it, I would still read through it, but I'd be half paying attention. And I just feel like that's so much wasted time that I could be putting into something else, right? I could be listening to music. I was talking to people about this yesterday, actually. I could be listening to music. I could be watching a show. I could be talking to people rather than reading this book that I'm not enjoying just for the sake of finishing it. And so I want to do less of that. I want the reading that I do to be intentional, but not to feel like I need to always be reading.
No, I relate to that completely. Now, last year was a strange year for me because of personal stuff going on in my life. I didn't read nearly as much. And I think that was a really good experience. And it didn't feel like it was by choice. It was just because that was the kind of year I was having. But it's also given me a different perspective on all of this stuff. I think I'm going to continue to read about the same amount I read last year. And I think that so far, just into February, that has been the case. So in other words, there are days when I barely pick up a book. She talked about she had a shift of reading in the morning, another shift of reading in the afternoon and in the evening. And she said it was comparable to how much time most people spend on their phones. And I think I did that. And I don't do that anymore. And I think the thing that struck me, that resonated the most deeply, that was a lesson learned from last year, I'll read a couple sentences from her essay. Another truth still. You must give yourself space to respond to stimuli, to notice what you've learned, and decide what to do with it. We all need time to breathe. It turns out that books are no different. And that, I think, is what I got from my year of reading in 2024, is that, yeah, I had an absolutely phenomenal reading year. I read maybe 25% less, but the books got in deeper because I left space to sit with them after. The other thing, she talks about the kind of addictive nature of her reading was that she was lonely and she was trying to compensate for that or put that aside. And that is the part where my experience differs completely, in that I spent 20 years or something where I was mostly single, and I use the term single loosely, very short-term relationships, sometimes hours, but sometimes weeks, but mostly single. And I couldn't read during those years. I might read a book a month. I shouldn't say I couldn't read a book a month, but or less. And it wasn't until I got into a really serious and nourishing relationship that I started reading again quite voraciously. So I think everybody has something different. But when I'm lonely and I'm effed up for any emotional reason, that's the first thing that goes. I can't read. So everybody has a different. Yeah.
Same. My mind is all over the place, and a book doesn't work. And
right.
Part of the process is like learning that it's okay. It's okay to put the book down. It's okay that you're not reading right now because you're breathing and figuring things out.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was what came up for me when I was reading her article. She described her experience very fully and vividly, and it wasn't the experience that I had. But have loved ones in your life ever told you? I don't imagine your better half would ever say this to you, but has anybody ever said to you, you read too much?
Yes, all the time. Yes. So I'm fortunate to have a husband who reads just as much as I do. And we like nothing more than a Saturday and Sunday morning with our books on the couch, right? That is like sacred time. And so we do sometimes say to my family when they're like, oh, let's do something, like let's go to breakfast or let's go for a hike or something, and let's start on Saturday at 10 a.m. And we're like, oh no, that's like our precious time. We'll see you after 3. So yeah, that actually, it does get in the way. And so like negotiating that, because yes, I don't want to not read in the morning because I really love that. Even if it is taking away from family time, I do love that genuinely, and it's not an escape, it's a pleasure. But you have to negotiate. I don't know, like I feel like I could be better at like meeting in the middle, or just, I don't know, being better at it. It's not a bad thing either way. And actually, I just go back to what she talks about loneliness and how to escape from that feeling of loneliness, she'll read. And I think that's okay. Like that will help. That does help people, even if I've never experienced that. Like I said, I can't read when I'm in my head. If that helps you, that's good. It's not a bad thing. It's more just like interesting questions to think about, right?
Absolutely. There was a phrase, I wonder if I could quickly find it, that she used about that. It was an edifying, what did she say? An edifying addiction. Well, she didn't use the word addiction. If you have to get addicted to something, reading's not going to hurt too much. I remember my dad asked me a couple years ago, don't you think you read too much? I said, basically where she gets to at the end of her journey and at the end of her essay is encapsulated in this sentence. A rebalance was needed, but the fact remains that there are still a few things that give me more pleasure than a good book. Hear, hear. Can I ask, what are some of the books that you wish you hadn't read last year?
I don't remember exactly, but I will say that sometimes it'll be like new releases that I will feel like I should read because maybe I'm gifted them or because everybody's talking about them. And I'll start it and I'll be like, oh, this isn't as exciting as like they made it out to be. And I will push through it to finish, but then it'll take me longer to finish because I'm not enjoying it. So that'll be a longer time that I'm not reading something that I like and a longer time that I'm not doing other things. So it's again, like those are the moments where I'm like, oh, I could be living, right? Rather than spending time with books that I don't like. And I would say most of the times they're new releases and books that are like hot books that I have an inkling I'm not going to like a lot of times, but I feel like I need to read it just to be a part of the conversation. But yeah.
I think we need to have a chat about bailing our next zooming in chat, Bernie.
How about you? Are there books that like you felt like you wasted your time?
No, because I bail, but I bail on a lot less. So maybe I choose more. I'm not as affected by, no, that's not true. I like the shiny new books, the new releases, but I've just been on a spell of having made some really good choices. If everybody's reading it, I will tend to avoid it and to come back to it later. So that's one strategy I use. But I bet there's people who follow your Bookstagram and see you fairly often on my channel that are dying to know what on earth do you do when you're not reading? But maybe I don't believe that you do actually do anything else.
Yeah, no. So we live now close to my family, so we're always hanging out with them. I have nieces and nephews now, and so that takes up a lot of time. But Chris, my husband, recently we've been making an effort to explore on Saturdays. So like the past couple of weekends, we'll choose a town that's maybe within an hour away from us and go and visit bookshops, obviously, but eat, go to bars. Last time we drove like 55 minutes to go to the movies last weekend just for the heck of it because it's the new town. So we're trying to do things like that. This is really funny, and I don't imagine these people will watch this videos. I don't mind talking about it, but one of the things that we attempted to do when we first moved to where we are is to become a part of the gay community, and it just became so exhausting. Gay night here is Friday nights, and so we'd lose our Saturdays because we'd be hungover, and there's so much cattiness and drama. We were just like, oh, this is exhausting. So we're trying to, but that was one way that we like tried to read less and do more. But now we're like, oh, what else can we do aside from that?
That's maybe one comment I would add to what she's talking about. There are ways to be social that involve books. There are ways to get out of the house because of books, going to book launches, joining a book club, all the stuff that I do with my channel. It's in that sense, it's not shutting me off from contact with others. I'm just choosing bookish others. I have to ask you this, Bernie. It is actually on topic a bit. Have you watched, it's been out forever, so you probably have, although maybe you don't make much time for TV or Netflix. Have you watched Heartstopper?
Yes. We haven't, I don't think we've watched the recent season, but we watched.
I just finished watching season 3 with my mom, and talk about a heartbreaking show. I'm not much of a TV watcher, and that is the best thing I've ever seen on TV in my life. And there are other things that I've loved a lot, but that one just got all the way inside me. And I can't remember his name, but do you remember the pudgy minor character that's part of the friend group?
The one that's asexual, I think.
Yes. Asexual.
I've read all the graphic novels, so I do know.
I immediately want to. I wasn't interested in them, but now I definitely am. And every time you saw him, when he was up and about with his friends, he was carrying a book. He was like walking down the hall, reading a book and talking to his friends. I think that's a fair compromise.
I think the author does talk about that. Health. I think she does mention that health takes you out of the moment because you're
absolutely
reading a book while people.
I'm being a little bit flippant, but still, I think he's going to be my spirit guide.
I wish I had the attention span to I wouldn't be able to pay attention with all these things going around me.
I don't know. I couldn't do it either, but I'd love to.
I wish I could.
I want to make a readathon or something of all the books that he appeared on screen with. That's great. Bernie, is there anything else you have to say about this? Maybe we've done it up good.
No, I think it was a really good article, and I liked how personal it was, and I liked how even if one didn't fully relate to her experience, it gave a lot to reflect on and think about yourself in relation to. So I liked it. And it's an article I would recommend.
Yes, absolutely. So I would encourage people watching to check it out. And I will be following both that Substack account, and I think she's going to be appearing. I think they now have a joint Substack as well. Anyway, it'll all be in the show notes. But yeah, it was good food for thought. Absolutely. Bernie, always a pleasure.
Yes, indeed. Thanks for having me again. And I can't wait for the next one.